So just make sure you mute the channel once you get there. And we're live. There's always got to be technical gremlins somewhere in the ether. So hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to Accessibility Talks. Each month we meet virtually and talk about all things accessibility and generally focusing on website usability. Each month we invite a speaker to present an accessibility topic, and afterwards we invite the community to ask questions and participate in the discussion. I want to take a quick moment to remind folks that A11yTalks seeks to provide a friendly, safe environment, so all participants should be able to engage in a productive dialogue, so sharing and learning with each other in an atmosphere of mutual respect. We require all participants to adhere to the A11yTalks Code of Conduct, and this applies to community interaction and events, and verbal questions as well as text in the channels. The Code of Conduct can be found on our website, accessibilitytalks.com. All right, moving on. If you have a question for our speaker, please post it on Twitter with the hashtag A11yTalks, that's A11yTalks, or in the chat window prefaced with the letter Q or question. So it's easier for us to find it later at the end of the chat. I am today's host. My name is Carrie Fisher, and I'm an accessibility consultant and trainer at DQ. And our speaker is CB. He also works at DQ as a principal accessibility consultant. Today, CB is going to chat with us about screen readers and CSS. Are we going out of style and into content? Where we're going to learn a little bit more about various CSS techniques and how it affects content exposure, reading order, and screen readers. He's got some solutions as well to overcome some of these screen reader limitations, the AT limitations, and browser inconsistencies. He's tested this on over 24 common CSS declarations and the following AT pairings, and will present a result. So he'll talk all about that. Before he starts, I just want to say that CB is awesome. He not only is great at accessibility, he's also my mentor and an amazing drummer. So CB, and he's a lot of fun. So CB, take it away. Looking forward to this talk.
Well, I thank you so much, Carrie, for those nice comments, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much. I start all my trainings, all my presentations, anytime I speak, I start something with something similar to this. And that is that today we're going to be talking about principles, we're going to be talking about code, we're going to be talking about all these high-level technical type things, but I want to make sure that I'm clear on the reason why I do what I do and many of my colleagues do what we do. It's about people. It's about a person. It's about making someone's life better. It's about making the world a better place. I never want us to lose sight of that. It's extremely important that we understand it's about people. I would also like to let everyone know that we're going to be using the chat screen a little bit. This is an interactive chat. I'd like for discussion. I'd like for us to talk about things as much as we can, via the chat. I also want you to feel very comfortable that if you're uncomfortable speaking, that's totally acceptable as well. You do not have to do that, but as much discussion as we can, that would be fantastic. So if I could get everybody to find the chat really quick, just put in where you're from. Let me just see where everybody's from here. I'm gonna put mine in there as well. Atlanta, you're not too far away from me, Homer. Wisconsin, oh, hey, yeah, Oregon, Bellingham, very good. Wow, that's a ways, Washington's a ways. Oregon, Newtown, Connecticut, good. Excellent. Yeah, keep posting that, that's fantastic. I am from Florence, South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina. I am from the South, I'm a Southerner. You're gonna probably hear several y'alls, and the plural of which is all y'alls. We might even mention sweet tea and grits. Maybe, maybe not. Let's get into this. Let's talk about screen readers and CSS going out of style and into content. So just giving you a background of where this started and how this is how this happened is way back when HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You might hear the term progressive enhancement, as a matter of fact. those were all separate. So HTML was just content. It was just HTML content. That's what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be just content. So then we wanted to make it look good. We wanted to make it style. So then we got CSS. We were able to style it, make it look pretty. And then if we wanted some functionality, we got some scripting to that functionality. But all of those were really supposed to be separate. And what was supposed to happen was with a screen reader was supposed to, well, your computer has an accessibility API. And what was supposed to happen was the accessibility API is supposed to dip into the HTML, dip into the DOM, pull out the information it needs, and then deliver that information to the assistive technology like JAWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, and such. Well, we've gone further, and we start to see things. I test sites constantly. I test the sites daily, and I see so many things that the screen reader is actually conveying to, that's from the CSS that's conveying to the user. And that's what this comes from, is like, what does that? What happens? Like, why, when does that happen? And so what we've done, and I had a partner in crime in this, and what we did is we just tested it. We tested different assistive technology browser combinations. I'll show you all that here in just a moment, and just to see what happens if. So to give you the methodology of what we did, and I'm gonna turn my video off just for the sake of bandwidth. Okay, so let's talk about the methodology that we used and some thoughts and ideas that we had with that. What we did is we created several test cases. Now, when we created these test cases, we used all inline styles when possible. We limited it to only the CSS rule set that was required to test it. In other words, we didn't try to make things look pretty. We just wanted to test that particular style, that rule set. So we limited it as much as possible. We tested with several AT browser combinations. They were the latest versions of browsers and latest versions of AT, and many of this has been tested as of even this morning and yesterday. So it's a lot of this is very current. Also know that in many cases, it's not the best way to code. For example, a table, I built a table using divs and spans. I built a table using divs and spans, and then using CSS to be able to make it look like a table, just to see what happens. That's not the way to build a table. So there's some of these are just not the best way to code, but in the interest of trying to do these tests, we did it. I'm going to show you, let's see. I am going to show you the combinations that we used when we tested. We did TalkBack in Chrome for mobile, VoiceOver in Safari on mobile, VoiceOver in Safari. We used VoiceOver in Chrome. We did NVDA in Chrome, NVDA in Firefox, JAWS in Firefox, JAWS in Chrome, and JAWS in IE11. We did that as well. And I touched on Edge just a little bit as well. You'll see that here in just a moment. The test cases that we actually did, we broke them up into several different parts. Arranging content visually, text styling, CSS injected content, text layout, potentially hiding content. For example, for text styling, we dealt with font weight, font size. Every single one of these links right here go to our test case and the results for that, for that particular one. Now, there's way too many here to, did I hear someone speak? I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's me. Hey, CB, is there any way that you can make your screen a tiny bit bigger? We're getting some feedback that it's
absolutely
difficult to see.
Let me see what I can do here.
Thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting.
I'll make it bigger right now, but I'm going to have to probably back off here in just a moment. You'll see why in just a moment. I hope that helps. I just made my browser bigger.
That does. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that too. So I've got several different things here, and I will get you a link to this presentation so you can actually go in and look at this. Now, this is way too much to try to cover within an hour. We're going to try to wrap up today at 3:30 Eastern. So no later than that anyway. So there's no way that we're going to cover every single one of these. But what I did was I created just today's focus and what we're going to talk about today. And these are the things that we're going to talk about today. a practice example. I'll explain that here in a moment. We're going to talk about display. We're going to dive in a little bit to position absolute and before and after pseudos, and then line through. I'm going to have a short discussion on font weight, and then we're going to dive in more to direction, font size. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about clip. And then with time permitting, I'm going to try to dive into a few more. I doubt we're going to have time to do all of these, maybe not any of these, but we'll see where we are here in just a few moments. Now, when I said earlier that I wanted some participation, thank you. Yeah, so don't go to the don't look at the results just yet, because that's part of the discussion. But that's what I want to do. I will try to do this a discussion. Typically, I would do this in person, so it's more like people just yelling out things. But I'm gonna try to do this with the chat. I hope it works. Hope it works really well. But this is a test one. This is how this is going to work. I got to back off a little bit here on the size. I think I'm going to go to display. So this is what it looks like. Here's the example. I could probably zoom into this for a second. Here's the example. It's display. The example is display. And what I've got here is I've got a div that has display none. I've got a div that has display none. So visually on the screen, what is visually on the screen is display, which is a heading level 1. And then I think that next thing is maybe a heading level 2, which is here as a div having display of none. And then you can't see it because it's display none, but there's more code in there. So let's look at that code. So what I've done right now is I pulled up the source of what you actually were visually seeing. There's that H1 I was talking about. H1 display is display. The H2 is here is code that has display none. But then here's that div. Here is that div that has display none on it. So it says, what a pity, no one will ever notice this. Visually, this is not on the screen. However, it is in the HTML. It just has display none. Now, how do I want your participation to happen here is I would like for everyone to answer this question. And that question is, and do this in the chat for me, will a screen reader, any combination you could think of, at any point announce that div that has display none? What do y'all think? I'll give this just a moment to let people think about that and type it into the chat. No. Sammy Lynch, no. Okay. Andy, good. Liam, excellent. No. Seeing a lot of no's. These are good. It's good. Give another about 10 or 15 more seconds for people to type in and think about it. That's a great point, Carly. Great point. Carly wrote, I don't think so, but things happen. So let's see what the results are. Karen says, nope. Every one of y'all are exactly right. Let's look at what this looks like. I've got talkback. I've got all those combinations that I spoke of earlier, and it hides content as expected. It's not there. The screen reader doesn't even know it's there. Now, this is a really good style to use if you want to hide content from literally everybody. So that's a sighted user, a screen reader user. You could feel very, very comfortable that across different browser AT combinations, it hides it from sighted users as well as screen reader users. It hides it from everybody. So you can feel very, very comfortable about using that. There's another one too. I don't think I did this one, but it's visibility hidden. That also hides it from everybody as well, but it does something a little bit different than display none. It actually leaves a space. So it's actually keeps the space of whatever the dimension, height and width dimensions are on that open up. So there might be a big white space on there, but visually there's no content. You won't see content with visibility hidden. You also will not hear it with a screen reader. That's the way this works. That's the way every one of these is going to work. I'm going to kind of describe it. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to show you the source, and then I'm going to ask you what you think is going to happen. So let's go to the next one. This one is position absolute. This is absolute positioning. So what I have on the screen right now, visually, it says, Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. That's visually on the screen. It makes sense. It looks right. I want to show you what the source looks like. In the DOM, the very first thing is, and everywhere that Mary went. And the second thing is, its fleece was white as snow. Third thing is, the lamb was sure to go. And the very last thing is, Mary had a little lamb. And what I did was I absolute positioned it and then positioned it in a place where visually it looks like it's supposed to look like. But in the DOM, it is not. Now, nobody, I will stress this to you, nobody would probably code this way. However, we see variations of things like this. You'll see some of that here in a moment. But for the most part, you wouldn't code just like this. I did this just to be able to test as an example. So the question here is, before I do the results, post this over in the chat. I guess the question here is, the answer would be yes or no. Will it read in the visual order? Yes or no? Will it read in the visual order? And if you want to type a yes or no, that's great. But if you want to even type more, that's totally acceptable. Please do. Will it read in the visual order? See, getting a bunch of no's. Good, Homer, good. Okay, Karen says yes, okay. Keep it coming, this is good. I'll give it about 10 or 20 more seconds. All right, let's take a look at the results. Those of you that said no were exactly right. The lines read out the order they appear in the DOM, which is different from the order that a visual user would infer. So you're exactly right. Whatever's in the DOM, and this was across all the browser AT combinations that I tested. So yeah, that's right. It's going to read the DOM order. Now, why is this important to you? Because sometimes I'll see when I do my testing, I'll see someone that will absolute position something in a place that just it visually makes sense. But if you listen to it with a screen reader, it reads in the DOM order, and it no longer makes sense. And then we're talking about things now. We're talking about failures like meaningful sequence or reading order. We're talking about focus order and things like that. So just got to be aware. I'm not saying never use it, because there's absolutely times, no pun intended, there's absolute times there where we're supposed to be able to use this, and it's definitely useful. Just know what the results are when you're using it. Pretty much anything that you want to read to a screen reader, the order of which needs to be in that same order in the DOM. Let's go take a peek at another one. Okay, this is probably, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, this is probably one of my favorite ones. And most surprising to me. This is usually the before and after pseudo class. Over in the CSS, we might have things like content, something like that. I'll show you the code here in a moment. Visually on the screen, I've got a Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. That's what's visually on the screen. I also have some links and buttons out here. And just so there's a quick note that these buttons and links really don't do anything. I think they all go to Google, so just to be aware of that. But I've got a link, and the link visually looks just like a link, says select gold plan. I got another link that says select diamond plan. I got a button that says select gold plan. I got another button that says select a diamond plan. And I'm gonna go to think about this here in just a moment. So here's the question. Here's the question. The question is, this will be a yes or no. The question will be, yes or no, does the screen reader AT combinations read or convey to assistive technology, the content that's in before and after in the CSS. And I'll give everybody just a few moments to think about that. And you can start writing yes or no or anything else you want to write into the chat. This was a little bit tougher. Yes, from what I've seen. Okay, Liam says yes. Rajib said not sure. Okay, this is a tough one. Yes, I think I've happened this before. Yep. Okay. Sarah says maybe. I'll give everybody about 10, 20 more seconds. Ooh, good one, Annie. Good. Annie wrote sometimes text content, yes, but graphic content and interactive content, no. Good. No question mark. Christian says, not sure. I think it depends on how it's labeled in the HTML, but I'm a newbie, so only if the content is not in the okay, this is great. This is great, y'all. This is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much. Let's get the results. Let's get the results. I'm gonna have to explain these. This is crazy. This was crazy to me. Yes, in all my AT browser combinations, it read. Oh, wait, I forgot to do one thing. Let me just show you what the content looked like. The only thing that was in the HTML was its fleece was white as snow. That was it. Everything else, all that other text was in content, using content in the CSS. As far as the links and buttons, the only thing that was in the HTML was select, select, select. My apologies, I meant to show you that beforehand. And the results are all AT browser combination reads the whole thing except for JAWS and IE11. Everything that was in the before and or after pseudo elements were ignored. They just weren't there. So in IE with JAWS, I heard things like button, select, button, select. Now, there's some pretty serious information here after select. Select gold plan, select diamond plan. There's some pretty important information. All I was hearing was select button, link, select. One note too, I did check Edge. This was even crazier. In Edge, everything read but the buttons. So it looks like they kind of fixed it with Edge and JAWS, but the buttons still don't. So when I was using JAWS, I was using Edge, all I was hearing for the buttons was button, select, button, select. Now let's talk about this a moment, because I see this quite often. Okay, what I've got up on the screen right now, let me make this bigger, is I got, let's say this is a bank or something. Let's say this is a checking type thing or something like that. What I've got up on the screen is first store of Main Street, our services, and there's a table, and I've got 4 table columns and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 table rows. I've got bronze, silver, and gold as table column headers, and feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4 as row headers, but then I have a check mark in each one of these. I see this quite often. I see this quite often, something like this. Let's look at the code in this for just a moment. So what I'm using is an after, and then I'm using this \2713 for those check marks. \2713 in the CSS. Okay. Keep in mind that if I was a user, if I was one of your customers, and I was using JAWS and IE11, they have no idea those check marks are there. None. They don't know they're there at all. Now, so you kind of have to ask yourself, and this, there's the way to answer this is analytics. Find out your analytics. Find out what WebAIM's surveys are and things like that. You know, are there a lot of people using JAWS and IE11? I think there are. You know, do your clients, do you see in your analytics that people are using IE11 quite often. Because if you've got clients or if you've got customers that use IE11 and in your analytics you're showing that, there's a chance that maybe some of them are using JAWS as well. You might want to reconsider using before and after. That's huge. It's extremely important content sometimes that just doesn't get announced. And here's the crazy thing too, and I think someone, that's how facts start. That's great. I think somebody, oh, I lost my train of thought, so I'm gonna move on. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. So this is really, really important information. Oh, and keep in mind too, I've seen this a lot as well. When you're using some of these font awesome type things for before and after, the screen readers, I don't think accessibility APIs and screen readers have caught up to those yet. So sometimes you might be looking at one thing and the screen reader's announcing something else. Now, I think check marks and things like that is got, but if you're using this crazy, some kind of crazy font that's coded for CSS and you got it in content of CSS and visually you could tell what's happening, you're not sure exactly what's going to be announced there. All right, let's keep on moving. This one's pretty huge as well. Let me tell you what I've got on the screen here. This one's line through. I've got a H1, and the H1 is line through. My H2 is CB's Boombox bargain blowout. We overcharged the other guy and passed the savings on to you. That's paragraph. Then I think I got another heading here called Unbelievable Special Offers. And it looks like I'm selling a whole bunch of albums. Glass Houses, Billy Joel, got an album from Elton John and Casey and the Sunshine Band, Supertramp, Ringo Starr. Visually on the screen, I've got a price, and it's $12.99 for the Billy Joel Glass Houses. But there's a line through it. There's a line through $12.99. I used CSS to put a line through it. And then there's $10.99. I want people to just really quick just throw in the chat over there what visually, those of us that can see the screen, visually, what is this telling you? The line through it and a new price. Visually, what is it telling you? I'll give everybody about 10 or 20 seconds. Hold that SVG question. I'll try to get that here in a moment. Very good, Karen. That's exactly what it visually tells me. It screams to me, the old price was $12.99 and the new price is $10.99. Let's go look at the source on what I did here. Text decoration is line through. That's what I used on the ones that are the old pricing. Text decoration is line through. So this one's right here. It's got that $12.99. It's got a div on it with class of price, and that's line through. Here's my question for everybody. Here's my question. Let's think about this for a moment. Does the screen reader, any screen reader combination that you can think of, does it, yes or no, does it mention anything about line through or old price or old price, new price, or anything like that? Yes or no? I'll give everybody about 20 or 30 seconds to think about that. I'm seeing a lot of no's. Interesting, Sarah. Oh, that's actually a good point, Sarah. I just left everything on my assistive technology. Sarah wrote no, but I think JAWS reads strike through differently, question mark, depending on settings. I used all the default settings for the most part for the screen readers. Ha! Someone's got a fantastic solution there. So let's see what the results are. Every combination tested, there was no mention about strike through. Both prices are read without differentiation. None. None. Does it convey meaning? Oh gosh, yes. It conveys a lot of meaning visually. None of that is announced to any screen reader assistive technology combination that I tested. None of it. Now, there's someone posted there, Rajiv posted something in there that's really excellent. What you probably should be using is HTML DEL. I think that stands for delete or something like that, but it's DEL. If you use DEL, the semantic HTML DEL, it does convey. I can't remember exactly what it conveys, maybe delete or something like that, but it does convey to the screen readers. So absolutely, good job, Rajiv, on that note there. You had to break that. I know. I hear you, Annie. Annie wrote, I've had to break that to a few clients that made. But you see, we see stuff like this all the time. You know, we see stuff like this all the time. All right, let's go to Owen. It's good. This is good. I want to have just a real short discussion on something right here. And this is talking about font weight. What I've got here now is I've got font weight is my H1, and then I've just got this is some text, this is some text, this is some text with normal weight text, this is some bold weight text, bolder weight text, 700 weight text, and so forth and so on. I gave all these. Let's look at the source here. If we look at the source, font weight is bold, normal, bolder, lighter, 700. 700, by the way, is if you use the that's the HTML equivalent. 700. Lightweight 100, 900. So I used all of those different ones. So here's my question. This is a yes or no. Do you think that the screen reader, any screen reader browser combination, would give you any indication that these are in bold? What do you think? Yes or no? I'll give everybody about 20 seconds or so. Okay, Carly says no. Carly says no. Sarah says no. Got a lot of no's. Okay, good. The answer is that's correct. That's correct. There's nothing mentioned. There's nothing mentioned on any of the bold at all. But here's a little bitty discussion that I want to have with everybody. Should there be? Do you think that when somebody puts something in bold, does it convey information? Does it convey information when somebody puts something in bold? Usually. That's kind of a hard question to answer that I just asked you. So well, they got to use, okay, that's someone said that you should header tags. That's a great idea as long as they're behaving like a heading, actually, as long as they're behaving like a heading as well. That's a good point. Yeah, and so the thing about this is everybody's pretty much spot on. It really depends on the context. There's so much information there that we would need to answer that question. Does it really, you know, a lot of times people put something in bold for it to stand out, you know, but there's nothing to announce. So visually, yeah, visually there's something that says, hey, this is bold, make sure you're seeing this kind of thing, but there's nothing like that for the screen reader. When I first started coding, I did crazy stuff. I got it in my brain that I needed to announce to everybody that that was important. So I would put some hidden text that a screen reader user could find that says, the next part's important. And then I would say what I want to say that's in bold. And then I would go, that's the end of that's the end of the important part, or something crazy like that. I've got a lot of friends, a lot of associates that are blind, and I asked them about it, and they said, are you crazy? Don't do that. We already have enough information we're trying to get through. Don't do that. So yeah, it's important, but from the screen reader users that are blind that I've spoken with, they said there's just probably not that needed. I imagine there are going to be times where it is needed, but for the most part, you might want to just think about doing something differently here. Let's talk about font weight. This was a pretty good one. So what I've got right here is font weight. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah. I want to go to font size here. So I've got an H1 here is font size. I got this is some text, this is some text. Now what you don't see is I've got this is some text with 0 pixels. This is some text with 0 EM. You don't visually see those because there's 0. And then I've got this is some text with font size 10, font size 20, all the way up to font size 4 EM. So let's look at the source on this. You don't visually see this div right here. This div has got a style of font size 0, and it says this is some text with font size 0. You also do not visually see this is some text with font size 0 pixels, 0 px. You don't see that as well. I've also got one down here that's a 0 EM. You don't visually see that, but it's totally in the DOM. Totally in the DOM, just CSS font size is being used. So here's my question. Does a screen reader announce or convey any information that's got a 0 pixel on it? Yes or no? Does a screen reader announce anything with a 0 pixels on it? Okay, Annie says, okay, yes, I see a couple of yeses. See a couple of yeses here. Give it about another 10 more seconds. All right, let me show you the results. This is crazy, y'all. This is crazy. For everything but VoiceOver and Safari for mobile, it was exposed. The text, it read it. It conveyed it to the screen reader. VoiceOver and Safari didn't even know it was there. Didn't even know it was there. Do a lot of people use VoiceOver and Safari? Absolutely, they do. Yeah, doesn't even know it's there. I've seen a lot of people that want to hide text. I know, Andy, I agree. I was fascinated as well. I see so many people that want to hide information visually, but want to make sure a screen reader user gets it. And they'll put a text with 0 pixels. That's a no-no. That's a no-no for this very reason here. I was shocked when I saw this. Which brings me to the clip method. Everybody should know this clip method. I'm not gonna. I'll just show you. I'll just show you the results right here. There's some clip methods, and what I have visually on the screen is a block. It's a div with a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It goes outside of the green box. That's with no clip, but I do have another clip where visually it's actually on. It's actually inside. There's no text going outside of it. And then I have a clip with a 000 pixel where there's nothing on the screen. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and write straight to the results for this one. Some of you might already know this. Pretty much everything's red across the board. Now, why do I say no this one? I'm gonna post something in the chat too here in a moment. Because if there's ever a time where you want to, hide something visually, but you want a screen reader user to pick it up, you want it to be conveyed to a screen reader user. We call this the clip method. This is the mechanism. Now, I want to make sure I stress to you, you need to have a really, really good reason why you're hiding something from a visual user and giving it to a screen reader user. Now, there's definitely times where you're supposed to do that. SVG, I've used this method using SVGs to get the right message across. Someone asked about SVGs earlier. It's still in the DOM. You're exactly right, Homer. Good job. I have used it. I use it quite often, but you really need to have a good reason of why you're hiding something visually for the screen reader user and just give it to the screen reader. Now I'm going to post something in the chat, and this is the method. This is the coding that we use for this clipped method. So you can go to that whenever you're ready. And that's the code. I'll show you what it looks like. So that's the code to use for the clip method. Use it as needed. Let me roll it up here just a little bit. That's the code that's needed. Put all that in there. Give it a class of, like, in this case, the class is hide. The selector's hide. And did give it all of that. And it's going to hide it from the screen reader. Nope, it's going to hide it from the visual user, but not from the screen reader. And just a quick reminder, remember, DisplayNone hides it from everybody. All right, got just a few more moments here. I want to see what else we want to do. Opacity. I did opacity of all the way from opacity is 1, that's 100%. And I did 0.99, 0.5, 0.01. I did all the way down to 0. In 0, it's not visually on the screen at all. And even 0.01, it's very hard to see. The results were everything is fully exposed. So just be aware that if you do something of opacity of 0, although it's not visually on the screen reader is still going to be able to pick up that information. You should probably use DisplayNone. I'm going to show you 2 more, then I'm going to stop for questions. I'm going to go back to CB's Boombox. This is crazy too. This is real similar to what I had earlier, except for there's not a discounted price. I've got a Glass House's Billy Joel, $12.99. I'm using Superscript, S-U-P, I think. For these, let's take a look at the source for some of these. Yep, I use a vertical align super. I gave it a 0.5 EM. And visually, you can definitely tell it's $12.99, $9.99, so forth and so on. The results for this were pretty much crazy. Let me just tell you what the results were. Well, I'll show you one of them here. The results were, it doesn't mention anything about the superscript. It says $1,299. It doesn't say $12.99. It says $1,299. But visually, without a doubt, it's $12.99. We'll show you one more, then we're going to stop for questions because I really want to get the list style because this one was interesting as well. So I did a bunch of lists. I did some ordered lists. I did some unordered lists. I gave it a list style of none on many of them, on several of them. I did a list style of disk. I used some Roman numerals, but what I really want to talk about is I want to talk about Apple. The results for these basically is when a screen reader or browser combination landed there, you would hear, list of 10 items, item 1 or something to that effect, and then it would read it. Or you might read bullet if it was unordered. You might read bullet, the Philosopher's Stone, bullet, the Chamber of Secrets. So here's something absolutely crazy. I'll show you some results here. Actually, I'm not going to show you because they're very involved. I'm just going to tell you about them. On Apple, on Safari in iOS, mobile Safari, as well as VoiceOver and Safari on a Mac, it doesn't see these as lists. If you remove the bullet, for some reason, it does not recognize this as a list. Now, I feel pretty good that Apple was probably thinking, hey, if it doesn't have a bullet, it's probably, probably not a list. But it wasn't really good thinking, I don't think, in my opinion. But yeah, it just reads them. It doesn't tell you how many's in that list, which is extremely important to a user that's using a screen reader. How many's in that list? Wouldn't you want to know if you're a screen reader user, if there's a list of 1,000 items or if there's a list of 3 items? You want to know those things. So on Apple products, where I tested, they don't even know that it's a list at all. Cray, it's cray. The couple of takeaways, give me one moment here. But one of the number one takeaways that I want you to take away from today is this is my number one rule. It's many people's number one rule when we're doing coding and we're talking about accessibility. Use semantic HTML out of the box whenever possible. It has accessibility already built in. You get accessibility for free. Probably the number one thing I could tell when I do trainings for developers or I'm at clients, that's the number one thing I tell them. Can you, instead of that div that you're styling like crazy and giving all this scripting to, can you just use a link? Can you just use a button? That's the number one thing I could tell people. Also, another takeaway is it's really important to test with different AT browser combination based around industry analytics. WebAIM does a fantastic job of doing a survey every year on who's using what. I think this was the first year that NVDA was more so than JAWS. Actually, that might have been last year. I can't remember now. No, I think it was this year. And also based around your organization's analytics. Those are the two things. Those are the two takeaways. Test with your test with screen reader browser combination based around the industry analytics and your organization analytics.
That's awesome, CB.
That's all I have. I guess we can open up for some questions and things like that, maybe.
Yeah, why don't you start your video real quick and I can ask you some questions.
Okay, give me one moment here. Let me find it.
And anyone who is visually impaired, CB's avatar is a black and white photo of him holding drumsticks in his hand and his tie wrapped around his forehead. So yeah, you're committed. That's awesome. All right, so we have some really good questions and some really great comments. The good thing about YouTube interface here is that the comments and the questions will sync up with a video after it's published, after we're done recording live. And so if you wanted to go back and kind of revisit some of this, you can see those comments and questions sync up. So one quick question we had from the audience, and again, post in the chat if you do have any additional questions and we'll see if we can get to them. So somebody was asking if the icon font is quote unquote bad, would SVG be the way to go for those kind of icons then?
That's a great question. You know, what I do, it's so hard to say if something's bad or not. When as an accessibility person, and I go into a client, I never want to stifle people's creativeness and what they do best, the designers, the developers. There's some brilliant people out there, and I never want to stifle that. So I tried very, very hard to let them do their thing, let them do what they're best at, but let's figure out how we can make it accessible. I think that question can be answered in, it just really depends. It depends on what's being used. It depends, you know, on the type of coding and things like that. The thing is, though, is the big question is, can it be made accessible? And in those two instances, I feel like it can. If I go and test it, like using assistive technology, and I'm looking at some ice cream and it says treehouse, because that's the kind of stuff that happens with some of these icons. I'm visually looking at ice cream, but I hear treehouse. I might go in and then hide it from a screen reader user, but then give them the appropriate accessible name for that ice cream, you know, or something like that. So I feel confident that I don't really want to say anything is bad. There's probably better ways to do things, but most of these things I think can be made accessible. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that also probably depends a little bit on whether or not that is a decorative font icon.
Good point.
Essential. Yeah.
Good point, Carrie. Absolutely. Yeah, you got to ask yourself, has it got meaning? If the image doesn't have meaning that's not already on the page, because if it doesn't, just hide it.
All right. This is more of a comment, but I didn't know if you had any follow-up comments on this comment. This is from Annie. She's got the tag SUP, apparently doesn't work with most screen readers either. There was a discussion on the IAAP connections forum recently. Do you know much about that tag? Have you tested that one yet?
Which tag was it? I didn't catch that part.
SUP, like SUP.
Oh, that's a good question. So you're talking about the HTML SUP. I did not test that. I can tell you this though, if you put a dot, if you put a period between 12 dot and then whatever your superscript is, 99, for example, that dot makes all the difference in the world. It does say 1299 as opposed to 1,299. That's a great question. I have not tested, because every time I've tested it, it's always had a period. It's already had a dot in between the two, so it announces just fine. But no, I'm not familiar with that. Let me see. So it does not, excuse me. I don't know for sure, Annie. I did
That
not
might be one to test in the future. Definitely come back and update your presentation.
Yeah, well, the problem with it, though, so this is the problem with that. My presentation is based around CSS, right? CSS. And what we're talking about here is we're talking about HTML elements. I can tell you this, they're going to be more accessible than the CSS SUP. I feel very confident in that. But again, there's ways that you can code it that you are going to make it accessible.
All right. Looks like we have an additional question from Moisen. This is unrelated question. Is there a character limit for heading 1? I'm not sure if that's.
If there is, I don't know what it is. I think I don't think there is a character limit for heading level 1. I mean, I could probably say something about people with cognitive disabilities, and if your heading, you know, if your heading is that long, if it's really, really long, we might want to rethink how we're setting up the page. You know, maybe separate it in H1s with H2s, maybe throw a portion of it in a paragraph directly underneath it or something like that. I don't think there's any WCAG violations of the length of a heading, in any heading for that matter. I probably could be argued that there's some cognitive, maybe some SCs for cognitive, but for the most part, I can't think of it. Carrie, can you think of any WCAG failures for the length of it?
No, not that I can think of. I know that different screen readers have character limits, so I would look into which ones you're supporting or possible character limits. I guess there's ways around those as well. So I would definitely consult with the ATs that you're testing with for sure to know that the answer to that question. And it looks like Donna had some information as well, 50 to 60 characters for title tags. So maybe they're talking more about the title. Element.
Title. Okay, yeah, I was speaking on the heading, the H1.
So I have 2 more quick questions. Let's see if we can get to one of them, but we have a comment here that JAWS is expensive. Will testing on a combo of free options like NVDA and VoiceOver, will it catch most of the issues, or do you recommend having additional screen readers like JAWS?
It depends on your position. Me as an accessibility person, and I'm creating prototypes for clients, I really feel a need to test across different browser combinations to make sure that everything is hunky-dory across browser combinations. However, my go-to is going to be NVDA and Firefox, which are both open source. I think NVDA is an amazing product. I think those guys and gals over there have done an amazing job with what they have. JAWS is expensive. JAWS is a great product as well, but there is some cost involved with it. I would definitely, I mean, if budget is an issue, I would definitely, there's nothing wrong with using NVDA and Firefox, and even more recently, NVDA and Chrome is doing a great job too. If you're on a Mac, Safari and your built-in VoiceOver, which comes with Mac, I do spot checks with my with that combination quite often. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, keep in mind too, I do want to mention something about some of the screen readers. Like for example, JAWS. Sometimes JAWS guesses, because keep in mind, JAWS isn't really built for testing. JAWS is meant to help the end user, help the person that's blind. So sometimes it guesses. So in other words, if you've got an element that's like a form element, first name, and then there's a text box, but you didn't programmatically associate it, sometimes it will try to guess what it is. Sometimes it guesses right. Sometimes it guesses wrong. So just be aware of that just because the JAWS, really any screen reader combination, just because it's read correctly, still a great idea to go do automated scans and checking the code manually and things like that.
Yeah, and that brings us to one more question. I think we have enough time, but when testing with screen readers, I see in VoiceOver, for instance, compact and non-compact voices. Will this change my results if I choose a different voice?
Not that I know of. I don't think I think he'll still get the job done. I think that's got a lot to do with like personal preference of what you want to hear. A lot of my friends who are blind, they use that Stephen Hawking robotic sound, and they're very happy with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I think it's what you're happy with. I do think there are some voices that I have seen that do leave out some stuff, but I don't think it's going to be enough for anybody to worry about as far as their testing is concerned.
That's awesome. Well, okay, CB, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your presentation and staying around to answer some of the questions. If you have additional questions for CB, we'll post his Twitter link in the chat real quick. If Donna, if you can do that real quick. Otherwise, we can see you online. And any additional links will be available later when the YouTube video is posted online. So remember to join us next month to talk about more things accessibility. And we're always recruiting new speakers. So if you have an idea and you want to be part of the team to present, CB, hopefully you can attest that we're not a mean group of people. So we're very welcoming. So yeah, no, we really appreciate your time, CB. I can't even tell you how much you mean to me on a personal level, but also for taking the time to educate our audience. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Great job.